So here in this class we will know what is a peripheral blood smear, what are its types, how to prepare an ideal peripheral blood smear, and why do we make these, what is the significance or use of peripheral blood smear. So peripheral blood smear is a thin layer of blood smeared on a glass microscope slide and then stained to allow the various blood cells to be examined microscopically. So what do we do here? We take a clean, scratch-free, grease-free slide and then we make a thin layer of blood smear on it. Then we stain it and then examine it under the microscope. So what is this and what are the advantages of peripheral blood smear? Why do we go for this simple investigation? Although we have a number of investigation for every infection, but this is one of the most basic exercise or investigation that we can do because it is very simple. The slides are very easy to make. The smear is very easy to make. It is cheap. It does not take much of the resources to make a peripheral blood smear. It is also very rapid. You can make a smear very quickly and then examine it under the microscope, and still it is very confirmatory and gold standard for a malaria parasite. But however, there are few disadvantages associated with it because it is somewhat labor intensive also, and it requires not only a good microscope but some resources like good stains. Not only a good microscope, but also some slides, a good technician or a microbiologist to examine the smear with some very good expertise. And the sensitivity is also very low. The number of the parasites to be present in per microliter of blood should be at least 200 or more than 200. And what are the uses of a peripheral blood smear? Why do we, for what infections do we make peripheral blood smear? It is made in if you are suspecting a patient with malaria, filaria or leishmania. So what are the sites to draw blood? Ideally, capillary blood is taken and it is taken by doing a finger prick. It can also be taken from earlobe, also from grade 2 or heel prick, and grade 2 and heel prick are done only in cases of very small babies, infants. In pregnant women, cord blood and placental impressions can also be made, and in postmortem cases, this peripheral blood smear is made from cerebral grey matter. And if you are using venous blood smear, the smear should be made as soon as possible. And if you are taking if you have taken the sample in an EDTA vial, then also the smear should be made as early as possible. Now the timing of collection is very important for malaria because the number of parasites is highest at the few hours after the height of the paroxysm of fever. So the blood should be taken few hours after the height of the fever and ideally before starting anti-malarial drugs. In filaria, periodicity is very important because filaria is a nocturnal parasite. So the blood should be taken at least 2 hours before midnight to 2 hours after the midnight. That is from 10 to 2 a.m. 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. We can also go for DEC provocation test. It is a simple test in which the patient is administered diethyl carbamazine 2 milligram per kg of body weight. So what does it do? It promotes the parasite, and those parasites or microfilaria, they come in the they come in the peripheral blood. So you can also take the sample after this provocation test. There are two types. What are the types of blood smear? There are two types of blood smear: thick smear and thin smear. So, how to prepare a thick smear? A small drop of we, a small drop of blood is taken in the center of a pre-cleaned label slide, and then you take another slide, or you can also take an applicator strip, then spread the drop in a circular pattern until it is the size of, just a second, I just want to, and it is the size of a dime, 1.5 centimeters square. A thick smear of proper density is one. If that smear is placed over a newsprint, you should be able to read the words barely. And lay the slides flat. After making the smear, you have to lay down the slides flat and then allow it to dry thoroughly. And the minimum time taken is at least 30 minutes. Do not fix the smears with methanol or heat. If there is delay in staining smears, dip the thick smear briefly to water to hemolyze the RBCs, and thick smear can also be dehemoglobinized by putting the smear, putting the glass slide on which you have already made the smear in a Copeland's jar, and in that jar is filled with distilled water. So what do you have to do? You have to place the slide in distilled water. Now this is the proper method of preparing a thick smear. You have to take a clean label slide, place a drop of blood in the center of the slide, use a corner of another slide or an applicator stick, then spread the drop in a circular pattern until it is the size of at least 1.5 centimeters square, and then you have to lay down the slides flat and allow it to dry by itself, and 30 minutes is the minimum time it takes to dry the smear. Then you can stain the slide. I'll be showing you a small video on how the smear is made. Just a second. This is a small video in which this person is demonstrating how a thick smear is made. This person, this technician, he took a small blood in the center of the slide, and with the help of another glass slide in circular manner, he started to make a smear of the size of at least 1.5 to 2 centimeters square. So this is how a thick smear is made. Now, the second type of smear is a thin smear. So the proper method of making a thin smear is you have to place a small drop of blood on a pre-clean label slide near its frosted end. In thick smear, you have to place the drop of the blood in the center of the slide, but in thin smear, you have to place the drop of blood near its frosted end. Most of the time, the glass slide has one frosted end for labeling it, so you have to place the drop of blood near its frosted end. You have to take another slide, and then you have to place the slide over that drop of blood at an angle of 45 degree, and then you have to move the slide that is inclining on the slide you have taken the blood on. You have to move the slide and allow the drop to spread along the contact line of the two slides. Then you have to quickly push the upper slide towards the unfrosted end of the lower slide. Make sure that the smears have a good feathered edge, which is achieved by using the cut and spreading technique. It needs some amount of expertise to make a proper smear. Allow the thin smears to dry. They dry much faster than the thick smears and are less subject to detachment because they will be fixed. Fix the smears by dipping them in absolute methanol. So again, I will be showing you a small video in which the person is demonstrating the proper procedure of making a thin smear. See, the person took a small drop of blood near its prostate end, then took another slide, then placed the slide at an angle of 45 degree and then moved the slide from the prostate end to the opposite side, allowing the blood to spread in a thin film manner. So this is how a thin smear is made. So by now you must have understood how a thick smear is made and how a thin smear is made. You have to take a small drop of blood in the center of slide for a thick smear, but in thin smear you have to take a small drop of blood on the frosted end. In thick smear you have to take another slide or an plastic applicator and then move it in a circular manner to make a small smear of a size of 1.5 centimeters square, but in thin smear you have to place the slide at an angle to the drop of blood and then move the slide away from the frosted end to make a thin smear, and then thick smears they are not fixed, but thin smear they are fixed in dipping them in absolute methanol and then they are steamed. So this is this is a picture to show you how a thick smear is made. After doing finger prick, the slide is touched with a drop of blood. Then using a corner of a slide, the drop of blood is spread in the shape of a circle. In thin smear, gently squeeze the patient's finger again and touch the. You can also make thick smear and thin smear on the same slide. So again, after you don't have to prick the finger again. You have to just squeeze the finger, and then when the blood will ooze out, take a drop of blood on the next to the thick smear. Take another slide. Place the slide at an angle of 45 degree against the first slide. Then have to move the slide in a rapid and smooth manner to make a thin smear, and this is how the glass slide looks like. If thick smear and thin smear, both of them are made in the same slide. So there are certain properties, or a thin film should be even, it should be uniform, and the layer of RBCs should be single, and ideally it should form a feathery tail end near the center of the slide, and the margins of the film should not touch the sides of the slide. So this is how an ideal thin smear should be. This is the head end where you put the drop of blood. Then here is the point where another clean glass slide was placed at an angle. Then the clean glass slide was pushed forward in a smooth and rapid manner so that a small shape smear is formed. Then so this is the head point, this is the body area, and this is the tail end. This is an ideal thin film should have a feathered edge, and this is the site where we should examine the smear. So this is not a good smear, it is clumped. This is also not a good smear, it is very sparse. And the ideal thin film should be just like this, having a single layer of RBCs spread uniformly in the whole smear. So why do we make thick smear and thin smear separately? What is the difference between the two? The thick smear, it detects the parasite, but the thin smear, it speciates the parasite. Thick smear, it helps you to know if the parasite is present there or not. But a thin smear, it helps you to make out the species of the parasite. The thick smear is very sensitive, thin smear is lesser sensitive. Thick smear, it detects as low as 5 to 10 parasites per microliter of blood because it is very sensitive. Here, You can do quantification of parasitemia, that how many parasites are present in a particular smear, and it also demonstrates malarial pigments better. But thin smear, it helps you to know the species of the parasite. It is less sensitive, and but thin smear. It also helps you to make out the different or appreciate the different morphological forms of the parasite. I will be telling you the different morphological forms of the parasite later on. After making a good smear, you have to stain the slide, and the stains that are used to stain this slide are Romanowski stains. What are Romanowski stains? Romanowski stains are basically stains that have a basic dye and an acidic dye. So the appropriate ratio, so that what happens, the nucleus of the RBCs, they are stained purple, and the cytoplasm is stained pink. And what are the different Romanowski stains? Leishman stain, Jean-Charles stain, Wright stains, and this one thing, Perlman stain. Then after making the smears, after staining the slide, you have to do the screening. So if you have made both the smears, thick smear and thin smear, which is the smear that should be examined first? A thin smear should be examined first. And where it should be examined? It should be examined near the feathery tail end. I just uh, made you see the different sides of the smear. This is the head end, this is the body, and this is the tail end. So, so the smear should be examined first at the tail end, at the feathered edge. So, the thin smear should be examined first. It should be examined near the feathery tail. At least 200 to 300 oil emulsion fields should be examined before considering a particular smear negative. So you cannot just see one or two fields and then say the smear is negative. I already told you this whole peripheral blood smear is quite less sensitive. So it needs at least 200 parasites per microliter of blood. So for that you have to examine at least 200 to 300 oil immersion fields before saying the smear to be negative. And after seeing this thin smear, if you are not able to see any of the parasite, then again you have to examine the thick smear then. So thick smear is examined if no parasites are found in thin smear, and if you are able to see any parasite in the thick smear, you have to again go to the thin smear, again re-examine it, and if you are able to see a parasite this time, you have to try to appreciate the different morphological forms of the parasite, because only a thin smear tells you about the species of the parasite. And after screening, if you are able to see the parasites, you have to do the grading. So the grading is done because I told you, for quantification of the parasite, a thick smear is examined. So that is why grading is done on a thick film only. 1 plus is said to be when there are 1 to 10 parasites per 100 thick film fields. In 100 fields, at least 1 to 10 parasites should be present to say that this smear is 1 plus. In particular smear is said to be 2 plus when 11 to 100 parasites are seen per 100 thick film fields. What you have to do, you have to examine 100 thick film fields, and if you are able to see 11 to 100 parasites in those 100 film fields, then the smear is 2 plus. And 3 plus is when in a single thick film field 1 to 10 parasites are seen. And 4 plus is when more than 10 parasites are there in one single thick film field. So these are the different morphological forms of the parasite. This is this particular slide is about the different morphological forms of the Plasmodium vivax. So the first picture is showing different forms of the Plasmodium vivax. So how does a ring form look? How does a ring form look like? The RBC is quite larger here in size as compared to the normal RBC. Parasitized RBCs in Plasmodium vivax are larger, about and then uh, there is a small ring here in the. Where is my cursor? In one particular RBC, small rings are seen with one chromatin dot. The main thing about the main difference between the ring forms of Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum is that there can be only one or two ring forms in a single parasite in a single RBC in Plasmodium vivax, and the ring forms are larger in size. But in Plasmodium falciparum, there are more than two or more than two ring forms, and those ring forms are smaller in size. Then this is a trophozoite, late trophozoite. The identifying feature of a trophozoite is they are amoeboid in shape with a prominent vacuole. So this is our late trophozoite. It is amoeboid in shape, means it is irregular in shape, and there should be a prominent vacuole. So this clear space area in this stained uh, in this clear space area is a vacuole. So the identifying feature is a clear vacuole and irregular shape of the trophozoite. And then this schizon, these are very large in size, almost fill the entire RBC, and this is a gametocyte. And how do the gametocyte look like? Gametocyte, they are also in large. There are diffuse chromatin dots dispersed in the dispersed in the RBC. So the thing is that in Plasmodium vivax we are able to see the ring form. These are the different morphological forms we are able to see in Plasmodium vivax. This is a ring form, this is a trophozoite, this is a schizon, and this is a gametocyte. But in Plasmodium falciparum, we will be able to see only ring form and gametocyte. The late trophozoite form and the schizon late trophozoite form and the schizon, they are not seen in the peripheral blood because these two morphological forms are present in Plasmodium falciparum but not in peripheral blood. They are in the internal organs. So in the peripheral blood, only these two forms are present, ring form and gametocyte. I told you already that in Plasmodium falciparum, the ring forms are two or more than two rings in a single RBC, and these rings are smaller in size. In the gametocyte of Plasmodium falciparum is different from the gametocyte of Plasmodium vivax. The difference is in the shape of the gametocyte. The gametocyte of Plasmodium vivax was spherical, large with a number of chromatin dots dispersed in the whole RBC, and the gametocyte occupies almost all of the RBC. But in Plasmodium falciparum, see a crescent shape or banana shaped gametocyte is present. It is not occupying whole of the RBC, and these are the chromatin dots on the gametocyte. So these are the again revising the different morphological forms of Plasmodium vivax. The different morphological forms are ring form, trophozoite, schizon, and gametocyte. There is a single or two at max rings in a single parasitized RBC, and those rings are larger in size. In trophozoites, the shape of the trophozoite is irregular, and there is a clear space vacuole in the is the identifying feature of the trophozoite. The schizont is again the schizonts are larger. The schizont makes the size of the RBC larger, and there are chromatin nodes in the schizont. Gametocyte, it is even more larger, and the chromatin nodes are dispersed uniformly in the RBC. And this Plasmodium falciparum, there are at least two or more than two ring forms in the single parasitized RBC, and those ring forms are smaller. And in gametocyte, the shape of the gametocyte is a crescent shape, a banana shape, and these are the chromatin dots. And this gametocyte does not occupy whole of the RBC. Now, in the initial slides, I told you that peripheral blood smears are made for three infections mainly: malaria, for filariasis, and for leishmania. So I told you about the different morphological forms of the different species of the Plasmodium. And in my filaria, what is the morphological form you see? You see microfilaria, because microfilaria are present in the peripheral blood. They come out in the peripheral blood basically. And these microfilaria, they come out in the peripheral blood as per their nocturnal activity, as per their periodic activity. Filaria, Filaria bancrofti is nocturnal in periodicity. So what do? We take blood, we withdraw blood in the midnight only, 2 hours before to 2 hours after midnight, or after doing the DC provocation test. So after withdrawing blood, what do you see? This is the shape of the microfilaria, a long thread-like with tapering ends. This is the with long tapering ends, and this is the here the kinking is seen at the tail end. So this is the tail end, and the cephalic. This is the cephalic end or the head end. The cephalic end is free. So the area which is free and not kinked is the cephalic end, and the end that is kinked is the tail end. And there are you can see granulated appearance throughout. So these are not the granules; these are basically the nuclei of the microfilaria, and these are the different these are the RBCs. And microfilaria is a lymphatic disease. It does not parasitize the RBC. However, they come out from the lymph into the peripheral blood, and you can see the microfilaria like this amongst between a number of RBC, and small thread-like parasite is seen with the clear end that is known as the cephalic end, and the end that is kinked is the tail end. And this granulated appearance is because of the different because of the because it is struck with a number of nuclei. So this microfilaria or this peripheral glandsman is not made for only Bushleria bancrofti. It is made for all the nematodes that parasitize the lymphatic system, like Bushleria bancrofti, Durkheim malai, and Durkheim timuri, and also lower and for Manzanilla. And you can differentiate the different parasites in this peripheral blood itself, because different parasites, they have different appearance. Some of the parasites, they have a clear cephalic end. Some microfilaria, they do not have clear cephalic end. Some microfilaria are sheeted, just like Bushleria bancrofti. This is sheeted. On both sides of the nuclei, you can see a small, a thin, faintly stained sheet. So some of the microfilaria are sheeted, some are not sheeted. So this particular test or this particular investigation, peripheral blood smear, can help you in knowing the different species of the nematodes also. And the last but not the least, this is their picture showing LD bodies. So LD bodies are seen in Leishmania. So Leishmania, in Leishmania there are two morphological forms, amasticote and chromasticote. This chromasticote form is not seen in the peripheral blood. It is seen in your when you cultivate the parasite, then only this form is seen but in peripheral blood only amasticote form is seen. So this amasticote form in this it parasitize the macrophages, because this is a Leishmania is a disease of reticular endothelial system. No? So this parasite, it invades it resides inside the macrophages, and this is a single macrophage. It has increased in size, and these are the different forms of these are the different amasticotes. The identifying feature of different of the amasticotes is the double dot of the amasticotes. You can see two dots. So these in the single macrophages, they look like small bodies, and these are known as the LD bodies. So this is all you need to know about peripheral blood smear. Quick revision. It is a thin layer of blood smeared on a clean glass microscopic slide. Uh, it is simple, easy to make, inexpensive, rapid, but quite labor intensive, requiring a good microscope, few reagents, a few stains, and a good microscopist. So they are peripheral blood smear is made for malaria, filaria, and leishmania. You can draw blood from fingerprint or earlobe, grade 2. In infants, you can also take out blood from grade 2 or heel prick. In pregnant women, peripheral blood can be made from cord blood or placental impressions, and in postmortem from cerebral gallbladder. But most of the time, it is done by the finger prick method only. And the timing of the method collection is important. In malaria, blood should be withdrawn few hours after the height of the fever or before starting anti-malarial. In filaria, because I have been mentioning the nocturnal periodicity of Usheria again and again, so they are in the blood is withdrawn in filaria before and after mid 2 hours before and after midnight. So there are two types of blood smear, thick smear and thin smear. And how to make thick smear? I showed you a I showed you a small video. This is how a thick smear is made. A drop of blood is taken in the center of the slide with the help of another clean glass or a glass slide or a plastic applicator. You have to make a smear in a circular fashion in the size of 1 to 1.5 centimeters square. So this is how a thick smear is made. Clean drop of blood in the center of the slide and in a circular manner with the help of another slide, a circular smear is made. Now thin smear, this is how a thin smear is made. A drop of blood is taken at the frosted end of the slide. Sorry. A drop of blood is taken at the frosted end of the slide with the help of another slide. You have to place the slide at an angle to the drop of the blood, and in a rapid, smooth manner, you have to push the slide, making a small tongue-shaped smear. So this is how an ideal smear should look like. It should be even, it should be uniform with a feathered tail end and not touching the ends of the sides of the slide. And these are the different parts of the thin film. This is the head end, this is the body, and this is the tail end. And the tail end is the feathered, should be feathered, and the smear is examined here only. So this is a clumped smear. It is not that good. This sparse smear is not that good. A good smear should be uniform with single layer of RBCs. And why do we choose two different types of smear? Why thick smear and thin smear? Because thick smear helps you. It is sensitive, so it helps you to detect the parasite. Thin smear, it helps you to know the species of the parasite. Because it is sensitive, it can detect as low as 5 to 10 parasites per microliter of blood, but it won't tell you the different morphological forms of the parasite. To appreciate the different morphological forms, you have to see the thin smear. And quantification is done in thick smear. So what are the advantages of a thick smear? It detects the parasite, it quantifies the parasite, and it demonstrates the malarial pigment. Thin smear, it helps you to know the species of the parasite and the different morphological forms. And then after making the smear, it is stained by Romanowski stains like Leishman, Giemsa, Wright, and GSP stain. Then firstly, screening is done. Screening is done starting with the thin smear, and it should be examined at the feather tail end at least 200 to 300 evaluation fields should be examined before considering a smear as negative. And if you are not able to see a parasite in a thin smear, you have to see a thick smear. After seeing if you are able to appreciate or find out the parasite in thick smear, again you have to see the thin smear to know the species of the parasite. Then grading is done because I already told you that quantification is done on a thick smear. So grading is done on a thick smear automatically. So class 1 is 1 to 20 parasites per thick film. 2 plus 2 10 to 11 to 100 parasites per 100 thick film. 3 plus 1 to 10 parasites per single thick film field, and 4 plus more than 10 parasites per single thick film field. And again, revising the different morphological forms of different parasites, Plasmodium vivax, you can say ring form, trophozoite, schizont, and gametocyte. This is how a ring form looks like. Small rings with a chromatin dot. The difference between ring forms of Plasmodium vivax and Falciparum, these are single or at max two. But in ring form of Plasmodium vivax are multiple, two or multiple, and they're smaller in size. Then trophozoites, the way trophozoites are, they are irregular in shape, just like the shape of amoeba. That is why they are said to be amoeboid shape with a clear space or the vacuole. This is the schizon. And this is a gametocyte. These are the chromatin dots. And this gametocyte, it enlarges the size of the RBC many times, and then the number of chromatin dots are also there are numerous chromatin dots dispersed uniformly. The gametocyte of Plasmodium falciparum is banana shaped. The microfilaria, this is the microfilaria of Exterior Bancrofti. How will you identify the two ends? There is the cephalic end, the clear space is the cephalic end, and the king end is the tail end. The number of the granulated appearance is because of the numerous nuclei of the parasite and the faintly stained sides of the clearly see the faintly stained area on the two sides of the parasite is the sheath of the parasite, and this peripheral blood smear is not made for only Bushellea bancrofti. It can also be made for all the parasites that come in the peripheral blood, just like Brugia and Manzanilla. And we can differentiate the different parasites on the basis of the presence of sheath or the clearing of the cephalic end or the number of or the nuclei approaching the tip of the parasite or not. When you will read this chapter in detail, then you will get to know that different types of nematodes have different properties. They can be sheathed, they can be unsheathed, they can be nuclei or not at the tail end, and the cephalic can be free or not. And the last thing, LD bodies, Leishman Donovan bodies. This is the amastigote form of the parasite. Amastigote form of the parasite. It parasitizes the macrophages because there is the disease of reticular endothelial system. They reside inside the parasite, enlarges the shape of the. They reside inside the macrophage and enlarges the size of the macrophage to quite much, and these are the antibodies. These are the identifying feature is the double dot appearance of the antibody. Thank you so much. This is all for today's class. Thank you, everyone.